How can average working citizens like us, how can we reform our unjust financial system where we erode the wealth and power of big banks, traditional corporations, and the super rich and redistribute that wealth and power back to average working citizens without relying on politicians and regulations? This is the question we ask on the Crowd Effect podcast. I am your host, Paul Lovejoy, licensed investment advisor and founder of Stakeholder Enterprise. So, why am I asking that question on this podcast? And to give you an answer, first, I want to give you a little bit of a background here. And it started in 2008. I was 32 years old, recently married. I was a moderately successful real estate investor, and I thought I had my whole life ahead of me until the global financial crisis hit, where I was devastated. I was financially ruined. I lost millions of dollars, and not just my money, but my family's money. I felt shame, sadness. I had sleepless nights. I felt like I was a letdown to my wife, to my mother, to my brothers. And on top of that, I lost my house, I lost my self confidence, and I lost my self respect. While losing all of this, I saw big banks getting bailed out and corporate royalty getting golden parachutes. Witnessing that made me sick. It wasn't right. It wasn't just. I wanted for there to be economic justice in our financial system. I wanted to have my money back. I wanted to regain my self confidence and self respect. So I decided to do something about it. And I looked towards our political process and I volunteered for the Barack Obama campaign and the Get Out the Vote effort in Florida. So after Obama got elected, I felt like he said, thanks, but I got it from here. And I really wasn't asked to do anything else other than donate and volunteer for his reelection campaign, which I didn't do because after he got elected, there was this tidal wave of blaming and arguing between not just the politicians, but the general public. And all of this arguing and blaming reached a boiling point for me in the 2016 presidential election. It was disgusting. And on top of that, I didn't think Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton would be solving our problems anytime soon at all, really. So I decided to look outside the box for other solutions to reform our financial system. That's when I discovered something called social enterprise. Now, a social enterprise is an organization that's designed to use business strategies to solve social and environmental problems. As soon as I found out about social enterprise, I joined the Social Enterprise Alliance in March of 2016, and I'm still a member to this day. The problem was is I didn't know anything about social enterprise. I didn't know where to start, what to do. I didn't know any business strategy I could use. And on top of that, I was still struggling. I didn't have self-dignity, I didn't have self-respect, and I was self-medicating with alcohol. There was a morning I remember looking into the mirror and seeing this shell of a hungover human being. And was this going to be the rest of my life? You know, was this going to be the role model for my young children? If I didn't do anything, if I didn't change, then I would never regain my wealth. I would never reform anything, let alone an entire financial system, and I would never get my self-respect back. So I decided to do well, I made one of the best decisions of my life that day, which was to reread a book that I read that helped me become an early success as a real estate investor. The book is called The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz. And he gave me the tools I needed to make a change. He taught me that there really are only two things we have control over in our life, which is our actions and, more importantly, our reactions. And I'm going to paraphrase him here in his book. He says, if we can control our reactions, we can change our routines. And by doing so, we can change our life. And so that's what I decided to do. And a year later, my family and we decided to move from Oklahoma to Hawaii. Now, when I got there, I started to look for employment. And what I wanted to do was face my demons and really dive into the world of investing. So I got a job with a wealth strategy company and I loved it. I was so excited to be there. I was learning so much, and it was just a great thing for me to be doing. The problem was there was a big problem, and it was that I routinely denied people services because they didn't make enough net income. And this didn't set well with me. Now, I did work with people called accredited investors. Now, these are the top 2% of income earners in the United States, the wealthy. And accredited investors have access to something called the private market of investments. And in the private market, this is where, the wealthy, the super rich, um, institutional investors, this is where they get foundational wealth and power and where the general public gets locked out. You see, according to the SEC, you are not sophisticated enough to understand and invest in the private market. Now, I don't have a problem with wealthy people. In fact, many of them worked very hard to get to where they are. What I do have a problem with is a financial system that excludes 98% of the US population. And after 2 years of working for this company, I decided to leave, which it turned out to be great timing because a few months later, the COVID-19 pandemic hit. And I saw this as an opportunity. So I just want to first, before I go on any further, I want to acknowledge and express my gratitude to my wife, who is a pediatric gastroenterologist, and she was able to support our entire family while I stayed home with our young boys. And while they did their homework, I took it as an opportunity to do a limited series podcast on social enterprise as my pandemic project. So, over the course of the next 2 years, I learned not only about social enterprise, but about impact investing, community development financial institutions, the circular economy, and certified B Corps. Now, these are all self sustaining, market based approaches to solve social and environmental problems without the need of politicians. The trouble the something that I learned really troubled me, and it was finding out that impact investments were only available on the private market to accredited investors. Learning this, however, reminded me of a back door to the private market I learned about in my previous employment. And that was in 2015. The private market was deregulated a bit, allowing the general public access via crowdfunding. So, as soon as I learned this, I stopped working on the podcast and I focused solely on crowdfunded investments. Now, I became obsessed with crowd investments, so much so that a vision started to unfold. What if we could reform our financial system with the perspective of understanding what we control and controlling our actions and reactions, like in the mastery of love? What if we could use crowd investments as a democratic vehicle of change to reform our financial system? And what if there was a way for regular people to easily understand and participate in reforming our financial system using crowd investing? Because of my personal experience in the 2008 financial crisis, the journey of learning and training that followed, and practicing helping others build wealth led me to create the Ethical Investor Program. This is a three-part program to reform our unjust financial system through crowd investing. Now, the program has already helped tens of thousands of Americans receive funding for their small businesses, startup companies, and personal loans. We've assisted hundreds of families in avoiding foreclosure and and allowing them to keep their homes. We've helped dozens of community development projects. We've also helped dozens of family farms and other businesses that practice regenerative agriculture. And using this program, I was able to double my net income in 2 years. I have extra money every month if I need it. And if I don't need that extra income, it could grow. And it's really amazing how much change can happen with really only one person, a crowd investing. And so this is why I created the nation's first registered investment advisory firm that is reforming our unjust financial system through crowd investments. Now, I no longer participate in the national debate because the one thing I've never heard anyone say is I stand corrected. The only mind we have control over changing is our own. The very best we could hope for others is to inspire them. And the most effective way to inspire is with love, authenticity, and by creating an environment where people are willing to listen to what you have to say. Now, I believe that we can reform our financial system together. And I want to thank you for listening to what I have to say. And I hope to hear and see you tomorrow on our next episode of The Crowd Effect. If you want to learn more about the Ethical Investor Program, please visit the website stakeholderenterprise.com.